Hello, everyone. Welcome to our video series on bringing formative assessment to life in Edmonton Catholic Schools. As you've seen in previous videos of the series, formative assessment process is a cycle in which teaching is responsive and learning is informed, thereby improving the learning of our current students. Formative assessment has two components then: assessment for learning, in which teachers use student learning information to guide their instruction and provide feedback to their students for the purpose of improving learning, and assessment as learning, in which students reflect on their learning, monitor their own progress, and implement the feedback they receive from each other and from their teacher to move their learning forward. Let's recap Dylan Wiliam's 5 key strategies for the formative assessment process that support both teachers and students in knowing where the learner is going, where the learner is now, and how to get the learner there. First, clarifying, sharing, and understanding the learning intentions. Eliciting evidence of learning, providing feedback that moves learners forward, activating students as learning resources for one another, and activating students as owners of their own learning. As you watch this video, consider which of these 5 strategies are demonstrated in the video. You may also want to consider what features of the learning environment and classroom culture do you think contribute to the success? If you could change one thing about instruction, assessment, and grading in order to improve learning, what would it be and why? And what opportunity do you see for your own classroom practice? Today we will hear about how ungrading can be used to help move learners forward in their learning and provide valuable formative assessment information to the teacher to make sure the needs of all students are met.
I'm Kiara Smith. I'm a teacher at St. FX High School, where I teach English and Social Studies. This was my English 10-1 ungraded class. It's a class where they don't get numbers till the end, and we focus just on building skills and habits kind of centered in classroom goals. So today the focus was on goal setting and having them be reflective about their work and their process. So today was day 1 of that goal setting process. We've talked lots about our classroom goals. Within that, I'm trying to get them to focus on what steps do they need to take, where are they at, and how do they improve within those. Getting them to set goals is the first step to them owning their own learning. One of the things I was finding kind of throughout my career so far is that students have really been working for the number and putting an effort on things that had a number and not really putting an effort on the process to get them there, and then wondering why they're not improving and why the number isn't as high as they want it to be. And so I wanted to see if I could find a way to get the focus away from the marks and back onto learning, and how do they build the skills that will ultimately allow them to get the number that they want at the end, but be engaged in the process to get there. So I just decided to take the numbers out. So much of what we do in this course is formative. It's about the learning process, and not just about an end, a moment in time end point. What it means is that the work that we're doing is based on these classroom goals and working towards them and reflecting on whether they're achieving and are they improving from wherever they're at within those goals. So for the classroom goals, so I wrote them based on the program of study for English 10-1. So I took the program of study and I looked at all the outcomes and kind of started grouping them to try to find some patterns of which ones are connecting and what themes are emerging from the goals. And so when I looked at all of them, I was able to break them down into kind of 10 categories. And so 6 of those are content goals. So those are what they need to know for English. The 6 goals that I have, I was able to encompass every kind of content outcome in the program of study. And then the program of study also has skills, habit related goals. So that shaped some of those content goals, and then some of them, like my 9th goal is about learning habits. That was not necessarily out of the program of study, but I think it will facilitate the learning of those other content goals. And then when I was writing them, I wanted them to be usable for my students. The program of studies is not user-friendly for students. It's written for teachers, and there's a lot of outcomes. It's a complex document. The students need something tangible, something that they can understand, something that they can talk about and reflect on that's at their level and appropriate to where they're at in their learning. Every class, we start by talking about the goal that we're working on today. When they write their personal goals, they kind of ground them in those classroom goals. So they're really the center of my classroom. At the end of the course, when they're choosing their final grade, they have to pick 3 of the goals from the classroom goals and discuss them and how they improved and what they worked on in relation to that. So that becomes a piece of the evidence of their learning, is their reflection on these goals that we're working on continuously throughout the course. And then at the end of the course, because we do need to give a number at the end, we kind of look at the semester as a whole and the big picture of it to see what areas have they improved, what areas do they still need to work on, and then the students ultimately are part of the process of choosing their final grade. And when they choose it, it's based on like the whole body of evidence. It's based on not just a couple of assessments, these moments in time that we do throughout the semester. So when they're engaged in this process of goal setting and reflecting and evaluating where they're at throughout the semester, it helps them when they get to the end and have to choose that goal, because they're not just choosing a number out of the air. They've been engaged in this throughout the course, and so like I found when they do choose a number, it's pretty accurate. With the goal setting and the kinds of things that we're doing today, the hope is that students can focus on kind of the why of what they're doing and what they're learning, and as they're working on formative assessments and working on processes, that they can understand what it's for. So not just me knowing what it's for, and if they can understand how they're learning and what they're learning, and then the areas that they need to build and focus on, that will help them build their skills and help them with that process of learning. One of the biggest shifts for me has been just kind of reframing what's important in my own mind. So before, when I'm doing grades, I was very focused on the number as well, and really focused on that as a measure. And so the essays, the tests, the number things, it was kind of working for that purpose of, well, what's their next test and what's on that, and working towards that. So kind of the same thing that the students were doing was just working for that moment. I was kind of doing the same. And with the ungrading, it's allowed me to just focus on what do they need to learn and what's important. So, and then to make time for those things that are important, to make time for the process that the students need to practice and build their skills. For me, I feel like I'm teaching what's more important. I mean, this is still relatively new and still a work in process for me, but so goal setting is something I'm definitely still working on, and building on what we're doing today and helping the students continue to build their skills of reflection, because it is new for a lot of them as well. And so that's something that I want to work towards, as well as helping them be able to do peer evaluation and give feedback to each other, and be able to recognize, what this process looks like for them, and what this process looks like in other students' writing, and kind of have that transfer of knowledge as well. Students are very grade motivated, and so shifting that motivation from that external motivator to more of an intrinsic motivator is a challenge. Some of the students make the shift really well, but some sometimes struggle to get the work done if they're not understanding what they get out of it. And we do try to talk about that, but it takes time to shift that thinking for the students. I think the conferencing definitely helps with that, because when we have those conversations where they get something concrete of okay, I know I need to go back and work on this, I need to work on putting in more supporting evidence, or I need to work on revising ideas. So once they start to see that progress and see that they've taken advice and worked on it and gotten better, that helps with that motivation for sure. But definitely figuring out which students are really grades motivated and trying to find a way to kind of bridge that is something I'm still figuring out. Truthfully, part of where this came from was like teaching English and social and essays and marking. Like it's a huge time commitment, and it also started from a place of me saying like I need to reduce the amount of time that it takes to do all of this work. And so the goal is actually that, especially as I get more comfortable with this, is that it should be less time, because more of the work is being done in class, more of the marking and the conferencing is done through a conversation during class time, instead of me sitting at home just writing feedback on a stack of essays that the students may or may not actually read. So there's definitely been some legwork in getting it started and just shifting practice, but in terms of marking time, it's less. The time spent just doing work outside of the classroom is shifted. I have had to readjust like how I approach text and those sorts of things, because we are spending time setting goals and reflecting on them and doing some of that other work. So I've had to just change the way I approach it, but I can still cover the outcomes that I need in class. I find there is time to fit things in, and outside of class time, it's been better. I think over time, like it is kind of a long game in the fact that especially at the 10 level, it's really about building skills. But I do believe that as they have those better skills, those learning habits, those ability of reflection, that will pay off in outcomes, because that's ultimately what they're learning. In terms of relationships, definitely having these connections helps. I've had a lot more students come see me to get extra help, to have conversations, because they know that this is a place where we can meet and have a conversation. And so I think that's been really good. And when I did this last semester, and so the students, they write a final letter justifying their grade, their ability to articulate where they're at, what their strengths are. So I think it builds confidence in the fact that they have a good sense of what they're good at, and then what they need to work on moving forward. Again, whether or not I see them beyond this, at least at the end of the course, I know that they knew their strengths and areas for improvement, which I think will help learning across subject areas. It's not as scary as I thought it was going to be when I was starting this journey. A lot of what I'm doing is the same as what other English teachers are doing. My students do the same essay, they write the same final exam. It's the same program of study. I wasn't reinventing the wheel in terms of teaching, so it wasn't a starting from zero. It was shifting kind of the how. Because it is different, because my gradebook does look different, I think it just goes back to, I think it's still good teaching. I think it's focus on the students, it's helping them learn and progress and build skills, and what we're being asked to do to differentiate for students. The conferences allow me to do that. So I think it's a lot of the things that I wanted to do as a teacher and sometimes got bogged down and wasn't able to do them. It's possible to kind of think outside the box and try these different ways of teaching. And because I did have admin support in allowing me to do this, it's my students who are ultimately being able to have the benefits of it as well.
I'd like to extend a special thanks to Kiara Smith at St. Francis Xavier High School for welcoming us into her classroom. If you'd like to learn more, we invite you to visit our SharePoint site for links to these and other resources. If you have specific questions, please feel free to reach out to your assessment and reporting consultant at Lumen Christi. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.